I saw when they went to the garbage, they pulled out a traveling bag and they opened that up and they took out a garbage bag and they said something was in there. And then he pulled out a leg.
A woman's leg.
A woman's leg, right leg.
And what went through your mind when you...
Some kid's mother's not coming home today.
Her body was found chopped up in bags. 2 people now charged in this case, including her own son.
26-year-old Zara COOMBS was silent as police took her to face murder charges. She's accused of beating her 4-year-old son ZAMAIR to death with a stick inside their home.
It's under my nails and in my skin. I'm trying to prevail until it's bread. It takes me under any slumber which I can't escape. Take the fall as my eternal fate. The fear of death.
2 brutal murders, 1 family, and a legacy of violence left behind. A 4-year-old little boy, ZAMAIR COOMBS, was tortured and beaten to death by his own mother. So where was ZAMAIR's father while his mother was beating him and torturing him to death? Well, he had been sent to prison not long after ZAMAIR was born for decapitating and dismembering his own mother. MCLEAN then posed for a chilling selfie with her decapitated head. I know that's a lot to take in all at once, so in order to fully understand this case, means you need to stay and listen to this true crime case. Usually right from my she shed, however, I have a cold and I didn't feel like going out there, getting all my stuff and going out there, so here I am inside my house instead. I'm also sorry if I'm snotting all over the microphone. I'm really trying not to. Sorry, I really just started that off as Snotty Holly, and I apologize. Anyway, my name is Holly, and this is the Murder She Shed. Come on inside my shed or house, my true crime nerds, where everyone is welcome here weekly in order to hear rarely discussed true crime. Hopefully I can perform my southern charm on you so you can feel comfortable enough to smash the subscribe button and come back and visit me whenever I post a new video. Now grab a sweet tea so we can spill some true crime treat. I was trying to make a really good one here and I screwed it up. Now grab a sweet tea so we can spill some true crime tree. Why can't I get this right? Now grab a sweet tea so we can spill some true crime tea, my nerdy little friends. It began like any other quiet morning, the kind of hour when the city hasn't fully woken up yet, when the streets still belong to dog walkers and shadows. In February 2013 at 4 a.m., a man stepped outside with his 12-year-old son, leash in hand, expecting nothing more than a routine walk before the day took over. But on Eagle Avenue and East 158th Street, the dog stopped, pulled on his leash, sniffing and barking as he pulled his owner to something abandoned at the curb, a duffel bag that didn't belong there. As he moved open the bag, he noticed a vehicle circling the block and became nervous. So he took the bag around the corner. The 60-year-old dog walker opened the bag, and instead of looking inside, he stuck his hand inside, thinking there might be books someone has dumped. But instead, it felt like a baby's knee. He then looked inside the bag and saw a bloodied human leg. Okay, first of all, if my dog is sniffing at something, I'm going to assume that it probably smells something bad, because my dogs only like to sniff bad things, it seems. And so my hand is not going to wander in the bag blindly to feel this object. And I'm probably not going to assume that it's a book. This wasn't one naive old man. I'm saying old, yet I'm almost as old as him. But I'm not going to stick my hand blindly in a bag I picked off the street. Maybe I'm used to being out in the country and bags laying around are usually a bad thing. He sent his son to call the police and continued walking his dog. All right, my dog's still got to take a dump, so I'm going to keep going. You go ahead and call the police. I just found this random lady's leg in a bag. Seems all a little weird to me. Kind of creepy in a way. He's like, nothing new around New York. Is that what New York's like? I'm sorry, I've never been to New York, but it's kind of creepy that y'all can keep walking your dogs after you find a dead body. Just saying. New Yorkers may be tougher than me and things, I guess. So anyway, we just casually go on down the road while our son parts from us and calls the police. And about 2 blocks away on Eagle Avenue, he and the dog came up on another bag. da-da-da, do a drum roll. And the dog sat down next to it. This one wasn't a duffel, it was a square suitcase. I'm wondering if he learned his lesson and just looked inside this time, but it doesn't say, so I hope so. And if my dog sat down beside a second bag, this time I'm not opening that bag because I've already learned my lesson once, so I'm definitely not going to open it. Also, why would you send your child off by himself to call the police when someone was circling the block, or you thought they were in your mind? Inside of this suitcase was a woman's torso, still wearing a bra, as if someone had tried and failed to preserve a shred of humanity in an otherwise unthinkable act. By the time police arrived, the neighborhood of Melrose was already changing. What had been an ordinary Bronx street became a crime scene, frozen in disbelief. Officers would locate 3 more bags scattered throughout the area. A right leg was found on Eagle Avenue near 156th Street, while a torso was discovered on Eagle near 158th Street. A head was found at Caldwell and 158th Street. A female head was found in a trash bag that was inside of a suitcase, and the whole bag smelled like cleaning products. The body in the bag was 45-year-old Tanya Bird. She worked as a home health aide, a job that requires patience, compassion, and care. Qualities everyone who knew her said she had in abundance. Friends described her as upbeat, generous, the kind of woman who would give you anything if you needed it. She was a mother of 3. She had a 23-year-old daughter and a young son with Down syndrome, and then her oldest son, Bashid McLean. Bashid McLean had been in and out of mental institutions since the age of 6. By 10, he reported hearing voices. He believed demons followed him. He believed angels would descend to protect him. He also had a history of setting fires. He had been diagnosed with schizophrenia. He was frequently non-compliant with medication. And a lot of times people say, I have schizophrenia, yet I didn't kill anybody, and that's true. So that's no excuse really. So let's not let him use that as an excuse. However, relatives also said he was volatile, aggressive, and deeply resentful, especially toward his younger brother with special needs, who Bathsheba believed received more love and attention than he did. Basid's mother had put him in foster care when he was younger, and perhaps that was part of the jealousy and resentment that was within him. Bathsheba had a series of prior arrests, including a 2010 incident where he slugged 2 officers responding to a domestic dispute. He was brandishing a knife when they arrived, and when police told him to put it down, he lunged at them. He shoved one officer into a nearby car and punched the other one. Bashid, as you can tell, he was a big dude, 6 feet tall and over 300 pounds. Both of the officers' faces were bruised and bloodied in the struggle. Tanya let Basid live with her, maybe partly from pity. Neighbors heard the arguments. They heard things being thrown inside the apartment on Westchester Avenue in the Bronx. Babysitters quit. That was babysitting her little boy with Down syndrome. One caregiver said she was terrified of Basid, grabbed an evil look in his eyes. Another babysitter decided she'd start caring for the little boy with Down syndrome at her house after she witnessed Basid making strange concoctions and smoking coffee beans in the kitchen. Tanya was scared of him sometimes, but she did love him, just like any mother does. Sometimes we as mothers tend to overlook the failures in our children, and I guess that's kind of what she did. But he could change, he could be different, and you always want the best for your children. Tanya, although she loved him, she wanted him out of her apartment because Basid would actually sometimes abuse the younger brother with Down syndrome. In the winter of 2013, Basid was 23 years old. He was angry, bitter, jealous, and stewing over what he believed were lifelong injustices. Being placed in foster care, being criticized by his mother, being told that he needed to step up and care for his own infant son that he really didn't have anything to do with after he was born. A year earlier, Basid had searched online on how to commit murder without getting caught. He had tweeted, "Tanya must die." On the night of February 25th, 2013, Tanya went to sleep in her apartment, a place where she should have felt safe, but she would never wake up. Investigators believe Basid struck his mother in the head with a heavy object while she slept and stabbed her in the neck. Then he stole her cash and left her body in the apartment afterwards and attended class. Bashid was trying to get his GED. So he took a GED program in Brooklyn. And he just left the apartment like nothing had ever happened and went to his regular everyday class. Later that day, he returned with a classmate, William Harris, who he also served some prison time with. On that bus ride, Bashid told Harris the truth. He had killed his mother, and he needed help getting rid of the body. So Harris agreed. The two men then went to a hardware store on 3rd Avenue and bought a Sawzall, which is an electric power saw, if you don't know what that is. He bought gloves and supplies like bleach. Then he paid for all that stuff he bought with the cash he had stolen for his mother. So the stuff that he was going to cut his mother up with, she actually paid for. I mean, he bummed off his mom all his life. He might as well bum off of her in her death, I guess. Back at the apartment, Bashid dismembered his mother's body in the bathtub while his younger brother was sleeping in another room. Little boy with Down syndrome was sleeping and had no idea that his mother was being dismembered. Bleach was used to clean the scene. Photographs were taken. I don't mean by police. I mean by Bashid. One of those photos would later shock even seasoned detectives. Bashid posed in a bathroom mirror, smirking, holding his mother's severed head under his arm like a trophy. One of the most disturbing pictures on the internet. The body parts were packed into garbage bags, loaded into a shopping cart, and dumped across several blocks of the Bronx. Surveillance cameras captured the men calmly wheeling the cart through the neighborhood. To delay concern, Bashid inserted his own SIM card into his mother's cell phone so no one could call her. Bashid himself reported his mother missing, which put him at the center of the inquiry. Bashid himself reported his own mother missing, which put him at the center of this investigation. And detectives were immediately suspicious because the remains were unmistakably hers. Weirdly, on the internet, it said that when he was looking for a picture of his mother, he was going through his phone and he accidentally bypassed this picture of his mother's decapitated head. It said the cops saw that, but actually, I think that's just an internet rumor because there was nothing saying that the cops actually saw that while he was looking for his mother's picture. You know, they put a missing picture out there where the cops asked him for that. And so I didn't see anything saying that happened that was true. Are you trying to talk? What would you like to say? Upon entering Bashid's and Tanya's apartment, there was a strong odor of cleaning agents. The cleanup wasn't good enough because authorities found bloodstains consistent with a violent attack. The bathroom had bloodstains and was missing the shower curtain. Part of Tanya's body had been wrapped in that same shower curtain. Officers could tell her body had been cut up in the bathtub, and there was bloody saw blade laying by the tub. They also found latex gloves and a shopping cart that detectives believe Bashid used to transport his mother's dismembered body to the different locations around the Bronx. Later, the electric saw used to cut up the body was found at his friend William's house.
I'm gonna kill your ass in jail! You're gonna die! You're gonna die! I'm gonna kill your ass in jail!
Bashid McLean, hearing it from the gallery tonight, arrested along with friend William Harris and charged with hacking up McLean's mother, Tanya Bird.
To cut them into pieces like a piece of meat.
When arrested, Bashid showed no remorse. When asked if he was upset that his mother was dead, he replied, "No, not really. People die all the time." When interviewed by the police, Bashid claimed it was his friend William Harris who killed her and that he merely did the cutting. He said he felt obligated to cut her body up. He stated, if you can kill somebody, you should be able to cut them up too. If you can't do that, you're a coward. Bashid claimed he came home to the apartment he shared with his mother to find out his friend William had stabbed his mother to death because she annoyed him. Supposedly, she was being critical about his weed usage. And so William got mad and killed his mother, which, bunch of baloney. You don't know what a bunch of baloney means. It doesn't actually mean the lunch meat. It means that it's a bunch of craziness. I got UK followers. I got Australian followers. I got all kinds of followers. So you might not know a bunch of baloney means. So I thought I'd explain that. Of course, imagine this. William told investigators a completely different story. He said Bashid told him he killed his mother and showed him a photograph of her dead body and asked for help in disposing of her corpse. He had took a lot of pictures. The one going on the internet is not the only picture. I guess he had pictures of her before he cut her up too, which is what he showed his friend. Although William does admit to helping Bashid dispose of the corpse. Pictures of his mother's corpse were found on Bashid's phone after William told authorities that they existed. So police had no doubt that Bashid had killed his mother. You know how you have friends saying, if you killed someone, I would help you get rid of the evidence? You've had friends say this, I know. This guy really did that. But yet Bashid tried to make it seem like William did the whole murder. I mean, what kind of friend are you? You completely turn your back on a guy that stuck up for you and helped you dispose of this body, yet you're trying to say he did it? Bashid said that he wasn't worried about prison. He said he could retreat into a parallel universe in his mind, where he was a lawyer, married, and with a family. I don't know why, if he wanted to go to alternative universe, he'd want to be a lawyer, but guess to each their own. That wouldn't be my thing if I was going to go to alternative universe. Hey, we're talking about a man who killed his mother, so it's kind of crazy anyway. During trial, he had to be restrained. At times, he would urinate on himself. And so he had to wear this plastic baggie over him because they didn't want urine all over the courtroom chairs. The excuse the lawyer gave was that Bashid had stopped taking his medications days before the murder. Ultimately, the jury didn't believe his story. Bashid McLean was convicted of murder. He was sentenced to 25 years to life, plus additional time for dismembering his mother's body. A 100-year order of protection was issued to keep him away from William Harris, who pleaded guilty to hindering prosecution and served 2 to 4 years. He didn't have to serve very long, but like, who is the protection for? Is it for William or was it for Bashid? Maybe he thought William was going to come back and killing him for blaming him on the murder. I'm not sure. Tanya Bird, a woman described as generous, loving, and endlessly giving, was reduced to evidence bags and headlines. Killed not by a stranger, but by the son she never stopped loving. Rest in peace, Tanya. That's heartbreaking. But I'm not done, and it gets even more heartbreaking. Remember how we talked about Bashid being a father? His son, ZAMAIR, was only 3 months old in February of 2013 when Bashid repeatedly stabbed his mother. The reason Bashid was living with his mother was because he and his wife, Vera McLean, were separated, and Bashid and Vera, who later changed her name to Zara COOMBS, had a short but troubled relationship. She changed her name after her husband was charged in the horrible decapitation and dismemberment of his mother. A move many believe was an attempt to distance herself from the horror attached to the McLean name, which I can't blame her. Bashid and Zara had met in a group home when Bashid's mother gave him up. Bashid was mooching off his mother during their whole marriage. After Zara became pregnant with little ZAMAIR, the couple separated and Zara found love with another man named Jamar Richardson. Together, Zara and Jamar had 2 children of their own. By 2016, they were living in a rat-infested basement apartment described as filthy, unsafe, and unfit for children. At that point, Zara was responsible for 3 children under the age of 4 living in those conditions. ZAMAIR was the oldest at 4 years old. Beneath him were a 1-year-old and a newborn just weeks old. Zara also had an older child who did not live with her, whose father, like ZAMAIR's, was incarcerated. Sounds like she did not have the best taste in men. That's the first way she went wrong. ZAMAIR loved Barney and Spider-Man and always kissed his 2 little brothers goodnight. He loved food and already knew he wanted to be a chef when he grew up, which is so sad how he dies because it involves food. Those who knew Zara often said she was good with children. She actually worked at a daycare center owned by her family, and parents consistently praised the way she treated their kids. But behind closed doors, things were unraveling. Zara was struggling with postpartum depression. Her relationship with Jamar was volatile and violent. Police had responded to the home multiple times for domestic disturbance. The children were often left unsupervised in an environment filled with neglect and fear. Child Protective Services have been contacted more than once. In March of 2015, there was a report for failure to provide medical care. 3 months later, another call was made for inadequate supervision. Both cases were ultimately deemed unfounded. These reports, I guess, did not meet the threshold for ZAMAIR's removal, so the family remained under no active supervision. The same year, Zara was arrested for shoplifting. On January 25, 2017, ZAMAIR was hungry, so he asked his mother for some food. When she refused, ZAMAIR went to the refrigerator to get something to eat and accidentally dropped an egg on the floor. Zara became enraged, grabbed a broomstick, and beat her son until he lost consciousness. This little boy that just wanted to be a chef when he grew up, who will now never be a chef because he dropped an egg. Then Zara placed ZAMAIR inside a large Tupperware container filled with water and left him there while she went to breastfeed her newborn. I guess supposedly the plastic tub was used to give her children baths. It was located in the basement. And after placing her unconscious child in the water, she fell asleep while breastfeeding. About 20 minutes later, Zara's boyfriend came home from buying drugs and made a horrifying discovery. ZAMAIR was unresponsive, his small body curled inside this plastic storage container. Her boyfriend called the police. When officers arrived, ZAMAIR was still in the bin, foam collecting around his mouth and barely still alive. He was rushed to the hospital, but it was already too late. ZAMAIR died several hours later. The ME would later determine that ZAMAIR's death was caused by blunt force trauma to the head. His autopsy revealed nearly 60 separate injuries scattered around his head and all over his little body. Not all of his wounds were recent. The numerous bruises and abrasions covering his body indicated a history of prolonged abuse. A neighbor who witnessed ZAMAIR being taken out of the home said Zara showed no emotion or remorse for what she had done to her little boy. She just looked like a bystander, standing there just to watch what was going on. At first, Zara told her boyfriend and the authorities that ZAMAIR slipped and hit his head on the toilet and then the floor after he stepped on a wet towel. Later, she would admit to beating him with that broomstick. While researching this case, I did notice that a lot of blame was put on her postpartum depression. But ZAMAIR's body showed evidence of prolonged abuse. This, along with Children's Services being involved 2 years before ZAMAIR's murder, made me think this was normal behavior for Zara. To me, this suggests that this behavior wasn't just a momentary lapse caused by mental health struggles. It appears to have been a pattern of abuse. Do you think this should be blamed on postpartum depression? She took a broom and literally beat this little boy repeatedly, 60-something times. It seems like she's just a rather cruel lady to me. Maybe you can leave a comment below on what you think about this. Maybe I'm wrong. Zara received only 17 years in prison, an additional 5 years of supervised release, while Bashid received 25 years to life in prison for his mother's murder. I mean, he was schizophrenic and also struggled with mental health issues. Did the jury have more sympathy for her because she was a woman and mother? Things that make you say, why? Why did the jury decide that she should only get the 17 years? In the same family, a horrifying pattern unfolded. A child kills his mother, and 4 years later, a mother kills her child. 2 generations, 2 devastating acts of brutality, leaving one small boy caught in the middle. A life ended far too soon. ZAMAIR's death stands as a haunting reminder of the cycle of violence that can tear through a family, leaving a trail of pain and tragedy that echoes long after the crimes themselves. It's just very heartbreaking. Rest in peace, Tanya and ZAMAIR. All right, guys, make sure you join me next time at the Murder She Ship, because I'm going to talk about a rabbit hole case that leads us into the depths of hell. Simon knows I'm saying bye. No, actually, it leads us to the land down under, Australia. Australia, mate. Sorry about that, Australians. But what happened in this case was from the depths of hell, about a massive child string that involves several high-ranking individuals. I would be digging deep, may smother before I come out of this rabbit hole, which means it is a lot to process. So Lord help me when I research this. Been doing tons of research, so be patient and I will get the video to you as soon as I can. I love you guys as always, and Simon loves you, Max loves you. Oh, you hit my mic again, boy. Look at me, Simon. Look at me, Simon. Can't you be nice a day in your life? Just one day of niceness.
Fall into the common cadence, engrossed with infatuation.